Hey there, and welcome to Module 5. This one is all about embracing health. Yes. Speaking of health, make sure, if you don't already, you got some water handy. Have you been drinking water today? If you haven't, get on it. Also, make sure you have your notes ready. And if you're feeling a little scatterbrained or anything, take a moment, meditate, all that good stuff, okay? So, I want to make sure that you're here, you're present, you're prepped, and you're good. It's not going to be a super long module, but I want to make sure that we're with it. We're a team. So let's go ahead and talk about embracing health. And honestly, my main goal with embracing health for you is I want you to feel freedom with your health. And that's on a mental level and a physical level, okay? Because honestly, how you nurture yourself will help create more ease and won't make the work on your mental health that you've been doing, right? It won't make all of that an uphill battle. And that is something I learned massively in my experience with beating the bad, and even post, in keeping the bad, away, is making sure I'm taking care of my health, I'm embracing my health, and the way I think about it and the way I act upon it. Because for me, just to give you a little bit of understanding, before, and I've talked about this in past modules, but, big time was using alcohol and sugar and exercise, in very unhealthy ways in order to cope with my emotions, in order to, punish myself even sometimes. I've used exercise as a form of punishment. And even when you're dealing with anxiousness or depression, that can feel in control of how you take care of yourself. And so we want to really take that back and embrace our health, because it is truly like one big massive act of self-love and self-care when we do that. So the first thing, I was going to talk about energy input and output first, but I think I'm going to go ahead and save it because I want to talk about the ways that we can embrace our health first, and then I will walk you through what energy input and output means, because I feel like you'll be able to better apply after we talk about that. So, my main rule of thumb, and everybody has their own take on what health should look like, what it should be like. Maybe you have a vegan diet, or maybe you have somebody who's eating nothing but protein, or a blend of in the middle, or enjoys sweets or doesn't. I don't know. This is the point of our world is so diverse. We are all so diverse in our makeup, in our bodies, in our interests, and all those things, right? So my rule of thumb when it comes to embracing health, whether that is how you're eating, sleeping, taking care of your mind, these things, is everything in moderation. That's kind of the baseline I always love to work with. If I want to, eat this one thing, okay, I'll have it in moderation. If I want to sleep, I'm not going to sleep for like 24 hours, right? I'm going to sleep in moderation. So everything in moderation. And of course, with all of us, you may have a certain boundaries or dietary restrictions where it doesn't allow you to have something in moderation, being mindful of that, and of course being educating yourself about it, right? So anyway, that's my baseline, is everything in moderation. The other thing I want to bring to your attention, first and foremost, is being mindful of mood influencing substances, because we are trying to have more self-control, and that's a really great thing. However, if you are trying to have self-control and then you're pumping your body full of caffeine, it's gonna make this an uphill battle. You're gonna be like, well, why? I want to have control, but I'm feeling really wired and jittery. It's because you are intentionally putting, mood influencing substances in your body. I'm not saying you have to cut all the things out. For me, that was a route that I definitely went. But I want you to be mindful of those things. Are you going to something because maybe you're feeling a slight addiction to it, or you feel you can't function without it, or you can't be the kind of person you want to be without that thing? I promise you, especially in the world of health, there are so many alternatives. There's not just one way of doing something. There's not one way of feeling energized or feeling rested, right? There are so many different paths to that. And so I literally used to think that if I didn't pound 2 to 3 energy drinks in a day, like full cans of Rockstar, that I wouldn't be able to function. I wouldn't be able to do my job. I would just be miserable. And for the first few days after I stopped drinking them, I totally was. But, people always ask me now, like, Olivia, how in the world are you running a business, raising kids, like doing all the things that you do and not consuming caffeine? It's because I go with alternatives. I meditate, I rest, I feed my body like nourishing things. Occasionally, will I have a Reese's Pieces? Yes, I will. Reese's Pieces, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. You know what I'm saying? Or a cookie, for sure. But again, everything in moderation. And, I've learned that like it's pretty amazing how your body can actually function on things that you might like, or away from things, or on other things that you might have not otherwise given a second thought to. So, just be mindful of substances that do influence your mood, and see if that's something that you want to continue doing or not. And we'll talk about at the end of the framework how to do that. So I got you covered. But I just want to bring those things to your attention. Now, when we're talking about health, okay, when I refer to puppy shakes, when I refer to health, I'm definitely talking about things like exercise, rest, internal care, food, intuitive health. Okay, like I love going with intuitive health. And if that makes no sense to you, intuitive health is basically just kind of listening to your gut on things. And that's again part of building up trust within yourself, is listening to that intuitive kind of guidance. So for me, that might look like when I'm feeling kind of stressed out, my brain will be like, oh, I should just like go get some sugar because you deserve it, but intuitively I'm like, I'd actually rather just sit down and take a short nap. Like I'm feeling overwhelmed. I just want to rest. And so you can start to kind of hear the difference between the two, whether it's like busy head stuff or like a deeper kind of knowing within yourself. So you get to do that with exercise. You get to do that with rest. You get to do that with how you take care of your mind. You get to do that with the food that you eat. And it's just a practice. It's simply a practice. And don't expect it to be this huge overhaul of life. We don't want to, again, fall into that self-sabotage. But, that's something where you get to explore that. You get to listen to yourself intuitively and remember that, one size doesn't fit all, and health doesn't look one way. I have witnessed yogis that I aspire to be like, where I'm like, that's amazing. They are so strong. They are so bendy. That's incredible. And their body doesn't look like mine. It doesn't, you have this kind of stereotypical, I feel like, white, like Western white woman, skinny yoga body. And I have seen women that are plus size, that have these just full voluptuous bodies, and I'm just like, man, I can't even do the things that they're doing. And it's incredible. And that's something that has blown me away, is to see that, people that are strong, that are healthy, they don't all look one way. It doesn't have to look lean or cut or muscular. It doesn't have to look like this one specific diet or this one type of exercise. It gets to look like such a variety of things where we get to weave them together in a way that works for us. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, because also when we take that approach, we take so much pressure off of ourselves, and it's freaking refreshing. It's like, oh, thank goodness, And you might also have found out, this was the case for me, that through learning to love yourself more and having more self-love, you either want to nourish and nurture your body more, or you actually feel like, oh, there are some things I don't really have to do because I was doing them from this place of lack or this place of not enoughness. I know for me, I was always doing stomach exercises and these hardcore workouts, and it was because I wanted I wanted a flat, fit tummy. And I just kind of reached a point where I was like, I love myself no matter what. And I don't really care to work out my abs. If they're squishy, and I love them, and that's fine. I'll do yoga to feel good. I don't need to do yoga to look good. Like, that's my jam. So, this is where, again, it's about kind of coming home to yourself, doing it your way, taking off those pressures, because this is the kind of stuff that is at the base of our unhappiness, of our anxieties, of our fears, of our worries, that come up with, the bad. And when we can start to hit these at home, everything else starts to fall away a bit more. And we realize, we're not worried so much. I had a student that she was like, I want to do yoga, but I don't really have like the yoga clothes. And I was like, who cares? I've done yoga in my like baggy, oversized men's pants, pajamas, like plaid pajama pants, full on. There's the penis hole and everything. Sorry, too much information. But I'm like, I have done yoga in my PJs, like on the rug watching Deadpool. And she loved that and ran with it and was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to do yoga now because I can do it this way. Yeah, we do it however we want. And it brings this happiness and this joy and this freedom. When we get to do something like not worrying about making a pose look just right, or making sure the foods we eat, look like the people that we follow, those kinds of things. It just takes off the pressure. And that's when you really get to have that freedom with health and you get to embrace it. And just to add another level to this, right? We want to change those health habits, and we also want to change the associations that we have with health. And so what I love to do, and the approach I love to take, is to control the mentality behind the health and not just the health. It's not just about switching what you eat, or meditating more, or sleeping more, or drinking more water, or eating healthier foods, right? It is those things, but it's also the mentality behind those things. And seeing things as choice, as nourishment, as unique, as an opportunity. So maybe you have a dietary restriction. Does that have to be lack or unfair or frustrating or upsetting? No, it could be this opportunity to find other amazing alternatives. It could be this uniqueness that's a part of you. Like, I don't eat that thing. I don't, or I can't. And I love that about myself. I don't drink alcohol. I used to way too much, and I don't anymore. And it is something that I see in me as being unique, and not something I have to be ashamed of or be weird about, or see it as a hindrance and be like, oh, well, I can't go socialize because everybody's going to be drinking and I don't get to drink. I can still go socialize in my way, and they can socialize in their way, right? So we can kind of change these associations that we have with our health and with our bodies and how we take care of them and how we nourish them. And that's the approach I love to take. And it's also how I've helped myself change how I eat foods. I don't see it as, this is a gross thing. Healthy is gross, and whatever is better. I changed my association with it. It's how I taught myself to drink tea. Yes, I taught myself how to drink tea. I used to never be able to swallow a bit of tea. I'd have to spit it right back out, and it was something I really wanted to do. I was like, I want to be a tea person. So I trained my brain. I went in and I was like, I'm going to associate tea with a really relaxing, nourishing thing. And the first few times it was like, okay, I'm super relaxed. This is great. And drink my tea. And I was like, okay, that's all right. This is still good. I still have this warm cup in my hand. I changed my whole association with it rather than just being like, ooh, this is gross. I can't handle this. I changed my association with it. And now I'm like, I love tea. I drink it all the time. So that's what's really cool. And also, again, on this note of the uphill battle, that takes that component out. When you have someone who is like, I want to work out in the morning, but they're like, they wake up and they're like, working out in the morning sucks, but I do it anyway. Yeah, but you're still conditioning yourself to feel like it sucks. And so it's always going to be kind of this butting of heads. And when instead you could be like, I'm really grateful for myself for getting up in the morning to work out. Like, I'm a little tired, but I am moving forward and I'm really proud of myself. And this is something I really love to do and I aspire to, be more excited about. It can be all about changing your associations, and it's just that reframe and that shifting of perspective, and it's a really cool thing to be able to do. So, tips for this, we're talking about rest, exercise, and rest. Okay, let's break these down like a little more. Although I think I break them down more. Oh, well, I'll break them down in the framework. That's what I'll do. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, and now I have something in my throat. That's okay. That's why we have water. Nourishing my body during this module. Okay. So my recommendation is to not do a health overhaul. Now I understand if maybe you're in a situation where your health is like massively at risk and you do have to do that. I get that, but if you have the choice, don't just overhaul everything. Be like, I'm going to get all the sleep, I'm going to cut out all the caffeine, drink all the water, switch all my foods, throw all the cookies out, exercise 5 times a day. Don't do that, okay? Because again, that's a lot of habits to build up. It's a lot of habits to break down, and your brain's just going to combust and be like, nope, we're going back to the way I used to do it because this is too much for me to handle. So, there's 2 approaches I feel like you can take with embracing health more, right? So you have, I have these like 2 ways of doing it. So when it comes to cutting things out or bringing things in, right? Whether that's like a form of rest, exercise, food, internal care, all those good things. You can do weaning, which is kind of those baby steps of taking something out or slowly adding something in, and there can be overlap, right? Or that cold turkey approach where you're like, cut it out, add this thing in. I think you're going to know what works best for you. You can try one way, and if it doesn't really work, be like, okay, I'm going to try the other way. Maybe weaning allows too much where you still just like, you can't let go of the thing and you need to go cold turkey. Maybe cold turkey's too extreme and you're like, no, I need to have time to switch these out. And I love to have this overlap. I love to, when it comes to like food, for instance, for me, it was like cutting out, like candy. I added in, I think, like dates, and, which is kind of like a sweet, a healthier sweet alternative. And so you kind of, you cut something out with something that you plan to kind of replace it with, if you will. In a way that's like non-addictive at the same time, where you're like just mindful of what you're doing. So, that's one approach for embracing your health a little more. The other way too is creating a system or going with flow. And so a system could be like, okay, I want to like work out more, or I want to eat more vegan meals. And so you create like, okay, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, I'm going to do that. You create a system for yourself. So that way you kind of have this like anchored in accountability. However, you could also go a more flow route and be like, well, I'm going to work out more, and I am just going to make sure I'm listening to my body. And whenever it feels like exercising more, or whenever I feel like, yeah, a vegan meal would be really good right now, then I'm going to go for it. You choose what way works for you, and maybe you marry the 2. Maybe you're like, I'm going to put a system in place, and then if I feel like it outside of that, I'm going to do it outside of that too. This is where you get to uniquely create how you embrace health. You get to do it in a way that best supports you and isn't just the right way. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's just whatever way works for you is the way to go, So, don't do a health overhaul, but you can do like weaning and cold turkey, or, system and flow, and make those work for you. And of course, as always, baby steps with making shifts. And even if you're doing something like cold turkey, baby steps in like your mentality and being like, okay, I'm going to make sure I like just nurture my brain little by little, because maybe it's going to be like, let's go back to that thing. I've got it. I'm going to take those steps. I'm okay. So, remember those baby steps, not to just completely rush into everything and expect it to just like all switch over without any kind of work. Because remember, switching habits feels like work, but it's temporary work until you make the habit switch over. So let's go ahead and talk about energy input and energy output really quick, and then we will walk through the framework and wrap it all up in a nice pretty bow. So energy input and output, I don't have a sweet dry erase board. I'm not super prepared, but I will either pop up a graphic or I'll show you with my hands and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So energy input and output is how I like to go about every single day. Because truly slowing down and refueling helps you keep going. Okay, life really is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There might be times where you sprint and that's okay, but you need to make sure to rest and account for that. So energy input is when we're taking care of ourselves, right? We're resting, we're eating healthy foods, we're meditating or taking breaks or doing something that we enjoy that isn't a lot of brain power, right? So maybe that's reading or taking a hot bath or going for a run, which is kind of middle ground because that could be input and output, but basically things that help you feel refreshed once you do them. That's kind of a good gauge at if it's energy input. If you feel refreshed after you've done it, you're on the right track. Energy output are things that we might want to do and inevitably have to do, which might be things like working, having conversations, exercising can be output because it can take up your energy, running errands, like all those kinds of things where when you kind of are finished with it, you're like, okay, I'm a little tired. Like that was work, and so that can be kind of your gauge on if you feel like you've been drained a little bit, you're still okay, but you've been drained a little bit, then that's probably energy output. So what I see a lot of people do is they save all their output for the week and they do output, and then on the weekend they do a little bit of input. So when you have this baseline, I really hope I pop up a graphic. If I don't, you're awesome. So you have this baseline of base energy, and when you do output, you're like up here. Output's up here, input's down here. So you got output, and if you're doing that all week long, and then you do just like a little bit of input, it's gonna affect how much output you can do the next time. And so what'll end up happening is you end up with this yes, I can do it all. Okay, took care of myself. Okay, I can do some of it. Okay, took care of myself. Okay, I'm not really, okay. And then I have adrenal fatigue. I'm done, I'm dead, I can't. And I shut down. And I see that a lot because you're doing more output than you are input. You're also saving that input for a very small window. And it's not enough. So the best way to embrace your health and nurture yourself is to do energy input and output in the same day. Okay, we want to make, instead of this crazy zigzag that slowly gets smaller, we want to make this evenly leveled frequency. So again, we have our baseline. And then basically what you have going on is, okay, I'm going to go ahead and work for a few hours. Or I'm gonna do some stuff, and then I'm gonna sit down and read for just a little bit or listen to a podcast, and then I'm gonna go ahead and do some more stuff, and then I'm gonna go ahead and take a lunch break and eat some food that nourishes my body, and then I'm gonna do some more. So you can see how it just keeps going because you have this good balance, if you will, of going back and forth. And that is, that's what I encourage you to do is every single day should be energy output and input, and don't save it for the end of the day. Don't be I'll do output all day long and then input right at the end. It's not enough. It's not equal amounts. So, try to make that rhythm and notice. And that's something where, I will talk about this in the next module, but I have the opportunity journal, and that is something that we track in the opportunity journal. You get to see your energy input and output and go, oh, okay, I actually noticed that. No wonder I feel tired or irritable because there's been more output today. And when we start to be mindful of those things, again, we get to stay more in control and more intentional with who we are. So, all good stuff. So let's go ahead and talk about the framework really quick, and then we'll wrap it up. So the framework for this one is stop, drop, and flip it. It's ridiculous. Stop, drop, and flip it. Because I love doing headstands, so that's where this comes from. But stop, drop, and flip it. So flip it is what we're breaking apart. And the F is going to be find your exercise, okay? So, when you're looking for an exercise, find something that is empowering or challenges you in a really positive way. It's why I do yoga, because it was always kind of this, I want to be able to do that move, and I kept having to work at it, and I kept having to get towards it. It's why people run. It's why, it's something that is taking care of yourself, but also kind of pushing your limits, which is also really cool because it also shows you mentally that you're capable of going further, doing more, not even doing more, but growing. Growing is really the point. So find your exercise, pick what works for you. Is it dance? Is it ballet? Is it yoga? Is it Taibo? Is it kickboxing? Is it wrestling? Like, what is it? Find what works for you. The L is let yourself rest. Oh, please, for the love of all that is good, let yourself rest. All right. I think it's like 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night. I will leave that to you, my friend. I think that's the recommended. But, let yourself rest. So, that can be a good night's sleep. It's not always the case. So maybe you need to nap, or maybe you need to be still with your mind and your body through meditation or through hypnosis. That lets you rest and is also internal care. So I'll walk you through that. But honestly, meditation and hypnosis lower your brainwave state, which allows you to get kind of that restfulness, and your brain's not so busy. That also happens when you're reading. It's really cool. So your brainwaves slow down and allows your body to repair itself and take care of itself because it's not so busy with everything else. So let yourself rest. As a parent, I know that I've had times where sleep was just like not a thing. And so you kind of go through these other measures in order to help get yourself that rest that you're looking for. And dude, it may just be sitting down and being like, I'm not thinking, I'm not doing anything, I'm just resting. On the flip side of that, if you are dealing with depression and you're resting too much, again, everything in moderation. It might be wearing you down even more because it's too much rest. So if that's the case, find your exercise, do some internal care, all those things, right? So listen to that as well. Which is the next one, which is internal care. So these are things like meditation, hypnosis, listening to music, reading, connecting to your senses, journaling, or even leaning into spirituality. That really nurtures your mind, which in turn nurtures your body and your soul, honestly. So, things like, that's why I do tarot readings, because for me it's a space of reflection and calmness and stillness, which really is a lot of beautiful internal care. Connecting to your senses, even if that's putting your feet in the grass or touching the table and being like, that's really cold and it's hard and it's smooth, right? You can kind of get your brain out of that busy mode and giving it one simple task. Reading also slows down your brainwave state to give you that rest because it's so focused and it's not just busy. So, make sure you're taking care of yourself internally, because that is just as important as externally, or as, your body and things like that. And then the P is pace yourself. Again, we talked about this. Find your pace, not someone else's. It's okay to try something and course correct, let yourself do that. So just find your pace. And then that was flip. So let's do it, which is independence from food. Moderation is key here. Intuitively eat. If you know something's not good for you, maybe don't go for it. Go for something that's going to nourish yourself. Or if you find something where you're like, yeah, I can just do this one thing, listen to your intuition, practice that. There's no right and wrong, just practice it. And of course, hydrate. I'm going to give you this little tip. I noticed when I used to not drink water and I was drinking other things, I would fill my body up with other fluids and then wouldn't feel thirsty per se, or my belly would feel full. So I wouldn't drink that much water. So if you're drinking other substances, go you. Just make sure you're also getting hydrated, because I used to drink like 1 cup of water a month, and not even that big. And I don't know how I'm still alive. So, yes. And then lastly, the T is take your route. You know, pick whether you're going to do weaning or cold turkey or system or flow, or maybe you want to make this like weird mashup thing that's your own thing. Take your route. It's you. It's unique. It's how you want to do things. You know, do you, boo. Like, that's what it's about. So take your route and do what works for you. And don't feel wrong about that or ashamed about that. Just simply take control of that. That's what you get to do. So embrace your health. It's going to make you feel a whole lot better, and it's going to make this entire process a lot easier. So that is it for this module. Please make sure you take a moment. You can follow the action steps in the workbook, fill out those journal prompts. That way you can get to know yourself better, and then also the frameworks in there, so you've got that available to you, all that good stuff. That is it. The next module is going to unlock, and after you do the workbook and all that good stuff, move on to module number 6, which is owning opportunity. I'm very excited to get into that one with you. So I will see you in there. Much love.